I am Aaron David Conan, and I have called New York City my home since my youth. Before that, I was raised in the Holy Land of Israel, serving as a rabbi, teaching the sacred laws of God, and guiding others was my sacred duty. The Talmud and Torah were my guiding stars, the very foundation of my life. My family, too, was deeply influenced by these beliefs. Yet, everything took a drastic turn 6 years ago on December 21, 2018. It was Shabbat, and my home radiated peace and tranquility. My blindness, a condition I had lived with for several years, had drawn me nearer to the teachings of God. I could feel my prayers through my hands, each word resonating within me like a sacred hymn. That evening, the glow of the Shabbat candles enveloped me in tranquility. But in a moment of heedlessness, I accidentally knocked over one candle. It fell onto the tablecloth, igniting it in flames. Panic surged within me. My attempts to extinguish the fire were futile, for my blindness left me unaware of my actions. Instead of controlling the blaze, I spread it further. Smoke filled the house, each breath becoming more toxic than the last. My chest tightened, my heart felt as if it were being crushed, and the last memory I clung to was a prayer whispered to God. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Then everything faded to black. This was not just physical darkness. It was a void, a pull dragging my soul into the unknown. It was unlike my blindness, deeper, colder, and utterly silent. At that moment, I realized my journey had merely begun. After losing consciousness, I found myself in an endless, undefined space. The physicality I was familiar with faded, and this darkness was utterly alien. It pierced my soul like a knife, cold and silent. I could not discern up from down, whether ground lay beneath my feet, or if I were falling. I could not know. Shadows flitted about, moving ceaselessly. I sensed their approach, yet who or what they were remained unclear. "Shadows," exclaimed Dimmy. I can hear. Shadows flitted about, remained unclear. The space began to change. Gray darkness morphed into a deep red, stirring an instinctual fear within me. Heat rose, making each breath more laborious. The shadows, once vague entities, sharpened into focus. Faceless, yet with whispered voices, they filled the air with words I couldn't grasp. But their overwhelming anger and disappointment echoed within my mind. Suddenly, I noticed my clothes were in tatters. I stood completely exposed, vulnerable, and defenseless. This realization plunged me into further terror as I remained clueless about what awaited me, or where this path would lead. An unseen force compelled me forward, pulling me onward against my will. I struggled to resist, but it was in vain. My feet moved automatically. Ahead, I saw massive, sinister doors, each bearing different inscriptions: Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, and more. The doors vibrated ominously, charged with a menacing energy from beyond. Behind each lay darkness and flames, but what terrified me most was being forcibly stopped before the door inscribed with "Children of Israel." A powerful force drew me toward that door, and in vain I fought against it. To my horror, the door opened spontaneously, and an overwhelming darkness enveloped me. The chilling sounds beyond filled me with dread, screams, groans, wails, voices of humanity whose pain defied description. As I crossed through the door, a wave of heat consumed my entire being, and a deep ache settled in my soul. It felt as though with every step I took, a piece of me was torn away. The echo of my suffering reverberated through my body and spirit. I finally comprehended my dreadful fate. I had entered hell, and my harrowing journey had only just commenced. So, before me lay a vast bottomless valley. The cacophony of screams clawed at my soul, and the groans resonated painfully in my ears. Those trapped here were my kin. Some I recognized faintly, others merely shadows of familiarity, but all bore faces marked by profound regret and helplessness. I witnessed souls writhing across the valley, some crawling across the valley, some crawling on hands and knees while flames erupted from the ground, consuming their bodies. Their flesh melted, yet never vanished. Others were crushed beneath enormous stones. A deep urge to help stirred within me, but glancing down at my own hands, I realized they too were ablaze, skin cracking and succumbing to the flames. I could do naught but watch in despair. As I moved onward, the valley grew even more horrifying. Massive, burning pillars rose from the depths, representing the powers and wealth they had wielded in life. Stripped of any authority or dignity, historical figures emerged from the flames. One, from the Rothschild family, bankers and diamond merchants, symbolized those consumed by greed, prioritizing their wealth over care for their people. He approached me, eyes hollow and engulfed by flames, his voice trembling with horror. We were God's people, but we took His grace for granted. We viewed ourselves as superior. Instead of helping our people, we reveled in our wealth. Now we witness God's justice firsthand. Oh, it wasn't merely the wealthy who were punished. Religious leaders who abused their power, false prophets, and corrupt authorities were among them. Rabbis in their ceremonial robes writhed among the flames, suffering for leading others away from God. The sight horrified me, and it dawned on me, at that moment, I was one of them. A wave of fire surrounded me, my body burned without perishing, pain becoming unbearable, tearing my soul apart. Oh, yeah. I grasped the severity of my existence. Regardless of my devoutness, I had rejected Jesus and ignored God's plan of salvation. This shame and regret grew heavier than the physical agony, overshadowing everything. Deeper into hell, more tormented souls appeared, each crying out in their own regret. We ignored the Messiah. We rejected Him, and now we suffer here. Oh, if only we could return. At the valley's end, I stood before the edge of a cliff. Beyond lay an even darker depth, where even more terrifying screams and wails echoed, voices belonging to those stripped of hope. I noticed the walls of the valley, bearing the faces of souls who had violated God's laws, misled their people, and made drastic choices. Souls who had violated God's laws, misled their people. They looked at me with accusing eyes amidst this endless agony. Yet amid this torment, something stirred within my soul. Was there a reason behind all this? Had I been condemned to this eternal nightmare, or was there still a path to redemption? The answer lay hidden in the continuation of my harrowing journey. As I delved deeper into hell, the torment intensified. No longer merely physical, but a profound shame and regret shaking my very being. Every scream, every moan served as echoes of the mistakes these individuals had made in life. This time, I encountered not only Jews who had rejected the Messiah, but also those who had twisted their faith to mislead others. A figure approached, adorned in a tattered rabbi's robe, a face melted with dark voids where his eyes should have been. This figure, once a guide to the divine, now stood as nothing more than a shadow. His voice, though cracked, still held traces of authority. We are those who scorned God's grace on earth. We regarded ourselves as superior, refused to lead our people, and denied the Messiah. Behold, what we face now. His words penetrated deep within me, directed not only at him, but also at my very being. For years I had rejected the Messiah, holding my people to traditions and laws alone. What if that wasn't enough? What if I had been wrong all along? Questions I had long suppressed clawed their way to the surface. The figure extended his hand toward me, my gaze irresistibly drawn to his fingers, each one engulfed in flames yet remaining intact. Symbols of his sins. He retracted his hand, looking deep into my soul. You are like us. The pride within your heart kept you from hearing God's true call. We sanctified the laws, yet we neglected our souls. We ignored the Messiah, and now here we stand. His words struck me like an arrow, piercing my very essence. At that moment, my inner reckoning commenced. For years, I had scoffed at any mention of the Messiah, and now I realized that my blindness was not solely physical, it was spiritual as well. My heart had remained blind too. I had stubbornly refused to grasp God's plan, hiding behind my inflated pride. In despair, I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face, though even those tears vanished in this nightmarish place. With deep regret, I whispered the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. However, even this sacred prayer felt woefully inadequate. The figures around me began to fade one by one. Their screams still echoed, but all I felt was an overwhelming emptiness within myself. The years I had spent believing I deserved God's love were merely an illusion. I collapsed completely, stripped of pride, left with only vast remorse. As I lay there, utterly spent, a radiant light emerged from the depths of the darkness. Even in this horrifying place, it carried warmth to my heart. Was this God's final call to me, or a last glimmer of mercy? Hell's darkness had consumed all my hopes. Kneeling on the ground, utterly broken, I believed everything was over. Yet, at that moment, a brilliant light pierced through the darkness, touching not only my eyes, but my very soul with warmth and comfort that felt redemptive. Gathering my courage, I lifted my head, and there, at the source of the light, stood a figure like none I had ever encountered. His face combined an air of judgment with profound compassion, seeming to see everything, my sins, my mistakes, my regrets. This figure was Jesus. Despite not having known him before, my soul instinctively recognized his holiness. Jesus walked toward me, speaking in a voice more beautiful than any I had ever heard. I see the goodness in your heart, he said. Your deeds have brought salvation to many families. Your prayers and assistance have fortified their faith. Yet, you have suffered here for rejecting me and ignoring God's plan. But grace is in my hands. I forgive you, because you still carry light within you. When you return, you must accept this truth and embrace God's salvation. Jesus then illuminated the good I had done during my life and its rippling effects. He reminded me of a Christian family once in dire need. Through my material and spiritual support, I had aided their struggles. My small acts of kindness had allowed their children to continue attending church and playing an essential role in God's grand design. These memories served as proof that I was part of God's love. Jesus' voice echoed once more. The light within you has not faded, although you could not see it before. When you return, acknowledge this grace and do not turn away from the truth, said the light within him. The light within him responded to the truth. His words stirred profound emotions deep within my soul. At that moment, I began to grasp that Jesus was not merely sent for the Jewish people, but for all humanity. The light in the darkness reconnected me to life itself. Suddenly, I opened my eyes and felt air filling my lungs once more. Though I could still hear echoes of hell, I realized I was in my bed, surrounded by medics. I had survived. Yet something within me had irrevocably shifted. However, as time passed, that transformation began to wane. I attempted to suppress the memories of my experience, the darkness of hell, the light of Jesus, and his words remained etched in my mind. Deep-rooted traditions and old habits clung to me fiercely. I tried to rationalize the experience, convincing myself it was merely a hallucination brought on by my fear of death. I questioned what I had seen, and even tried to forget it all. I attempted to revert to my old prayers and daily rituals, yet a feeling of fundamental change gnawed at me, disturbing my peace more each passing day. Jesus' words continued to echo in my heart. Know the truth, and do not turn away. One day, while desperately trying to immerse myself in routine and forget my experiences, the unexpected happened. It was an ordinary evening when suddenly the darkness I had grown accustomed to through my blindness shattered like a fragile veil. The light before me not only pierced my physical blindness, but also tore apart the darkness that had gripped my soul. At first, I could scarcely believe what I was witnessing in my living room. For the first time in years, I beheld light. My hands trembled, and my eyes were open to the world around me. This was not merely a physical miracle. Before me, echoing the light I had seen in hell, I saw the silhouette of Jesus. His eyes met mine, not in judgment, but as a reminder. In that moment, I realized that despite my previous resistance, I could no longer deny the truth he offered me, a path to salvation. The healing of my blindness was not simply a physical transformation, but a profound spiritual awakening. As the veil of darkness lifted, an explosion of light illuminated my world, and I felt a sense of redemption wash over me. Tears of joy streamed down my face as I grasped the magnitude of what had transpired, the unfathomable love and mercy of a God who would stoop to restore my sight, and in doing so, revive my soul. Jesus, how could I have ever turned away from you? I wept aloud, overwhelmed by the weight of my former pride and ignorance. You've taken the first step toward me, but you are still hesitant, I remembered, his gentle voice echoing in my ears. This is a sign for you. When you return, proclaim the truth. Do not turn away. His words resonated deeply within my heart, a beacon of hope guiding me through the turbulent waters of my doubt and despair. With those final words, his silhouette gradually faded, leaving me alone in the room. Yet the miracle in my eyes sealed the truth in my heart. I could no longer ignore Jesus. Disregarding his grace and call would signify abandoning my soul to darkness, forever lost in the shadows of my own making. But I knew I was not beyond redemption, and with this newfound understanding, a fire was ignited within me. A fire was ignited within me, a burning desire to share the hope that had been rekindled in my heart. Following this event, I not only began to question my old faith, but also recognized that I needed to embark on a new journey. The journey that began as a blind man had now brought me both physical and spiritual light. The opening of my eyes was not just a miracle, but the dawn of a new chapter within my soul. I walked in amazement, drinking in the vibrant hues of the world around me, as if seeing it for the first time. Every sunrise was a celebration, every sunset a reminder of the day's blessings. As for the celebration and benefits of sun meditation, the following exercises address the miracle that had occurred within me began to radiate outward as if it had a life of its own. My loved ones witnessed my transformed life, my family, friends, and even my grandchildren, and they too began to sense the presence of something greater. At first they were surprised, some approaching with skepticism, but as they witnessed my newfound spiritual peace and the transformation that had taken place within me, something began to shift in their hearts too. They saw the way I looked at the world, with a renewed sense of wonder, a deeper appreciation for the beauty that surrounded us. I patiently guided them toward the right path, knowing this journey was not merely an end for me, but a new beginning. I shared with them the story of how Jesus, the Son of God, had touched my heart with his loving presence. Through God's unrelenting love, I began to break free from the chains of my past, no longer bound by the weight of my mistakes. When the proud child was dead, I began to break free from the chains of my mistakes. Instead, I started to shape my future with a new light, a light that shone brighter with each passing day, illuminating the way ahead and guiding me on this winding path of faith. As I walked alongside my family and loved ones, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude toward the God who had given me a second chance. I had been given the chance to redeem myself, to make amends for the hurt I had caused, and to start anew. The light following every darkness symbolized the truth to which God calls each of us, the call to redemption, to forgiveness, to love, and to new life. I had responded to that call, and in doing so, I had discovered a love and a peace that had eluded me for so long. Years passed, and my story became a testament to the power of Jesus' love. I watched as my loved ones, one by one, began to follow the same path I had taken, a path that wound its way through the shadows of doubt and darkness, only to emerge into the radiant glow of faith. I saw the transformation in their eyes, the peace that settled over their hearts, and the love that flowed from their very beings. In that moment, I knew that I had been given a sacred gift, the gift of sharing the hope of the gospel, of being an instrument of God's love and redemption in the world. And with that understanding, my heart swelled with an unshakable confidence, for I knew that I would spend the rest of my days proclaiming the truth that had set me free.